So I will tell you that if it helps you any, while I'm doing a lecture like this, I would say that you don't have to keep your video on if you don't want to. It's good that I can see your reactions to it and see if you're confused. But for the most part, I will be facing here and doing the lecture here. So as I pointed out about these snapshots, this is a lot of information. This is an entire unit. Normally it would take 6 to 9 weeks to teach this one unit. Okay, because you're only working on one unit at a time, you're doing it over the course of 3 weeks, and that's the nature of of how you're doing it. So this, hi, this is Mel, and this is the snapshot for BSBINS 301, Develop and Use Information Literacy. So in chapter 1, there are 4 different topics that are covered. There's determining the nature of information needs, confirming the purpose of information searches, identifying possible sources of information, and using basic search strategies. So before we talk about how we use information literacy, we need to talk about what it actually is. So to be information literate, amongst other things, means knowing when a book may be more helpful than the internet, knowing how to find, evaluate, and use information from a variety of sources, knowing what questions to ask. Is the information complete? Is the information accurate? Is someone trying to sell me something? Being information literate also empowers people in the community to find the truth, to seek other points of view, to make decisions and support arguments. Finding and using the correct information is essential to being an effective in the workplace. So here's an infographic of information literacy. When anybody asks you what is information literacy, it's being able to participate in this entire process. Okay, so we start with being able to define the need. What is it that somebody wants? Is it for myself? Who is the person I'm getting the information for? If it's for myself, it's for a colleague, it's for a customer, it's for a teacher at the school I'm working in. And then once you figure out who it's for, you also need to find out what it is they want. Not just what they want, but the extent of what they want. So the very first part of being information literate is being able to define the information need. Then you learn the skills to search for it. So you find the information needed, and you learn how to find it effectively and efficiently. Next, you evaluate the information. Is this information good enough? Okay. Let's say that you have a professor who's giving a lecture at a university, and you went to the internet and found a pop culture piece of information from Us Magazine. That isn't a good fit for that person and what that professor might be looking for. Okay, so when you're we'll find out ways to evaluate different types of information resources and whether they're actually the best possible item that we can provide to our customers. Next, you need to be able to organize your information. So this has to do with putting it into a format that people can use. We have formats, and I teach you those formats on how you can provide the information to your stakeholders, and then also presenting or using it. And this has to do with, number one, using your information effectively yourself, but also when you have to give credit and you have to do citations, and you'll see in this presentation or maybe one of my other ones that if I get anything from anywhere other than your workbook, I will have a citation at the bottom of the screen and I'll point it out to you. We want to make sure to use our information ethically. So what kind of questions do we get as library professionals? We get directional questions. These are easy. There's a video somewhere of a guy who's like, my favorite question ever is, where's the bathroom? Because I always know the answer, and it's always over there to the left or the right. And so that's an easy one. But we do get directional questions. We do get procedural questions. And you'll notice that if you ever walk into the TAFE library, that they have actually increased the scope of their practice as library technicians and librarians, because it turns out that it made sense for the libraries to have the student ID cards and for them to help with logins, because people were logging in all the time. And so they actually have expanded their services to technology. So there are a lot of procedural questions. How do we use the photocopy card? How do I make copies? Then there are ready reference questions. How do I use the encyclopedia as an example of that? And then you have information or research questions. Who, for instance, who designed and built the Sydney Harbor Bridge? And I think that for me, the information or research questions are my favorite kind. That to me is what I love the most about library studies, actually. And that's the treasure hunt of finding the perfect information. So once we find out who the person is that we're doing the research for, we need to actually confirm the purpose of the search. You need to understand why you're doing the search. What is it that the person wants? Does the person want a recipe? Does the person want a photograph? Does the person want a film? Do they want 10 different resources? Are they going on a trip, and do they need resources from the internet so that they can take it with them? Okay, so you need to confirm the purpose. There's something in library studies called a reference interview. And through the reference interview, I want to just impress upon you the need to always remember to have your beginning, your middle, and your end. Okay. And so when we learn about reference interview, you learn about starting, hi, welcome to the library, using good eye contact, smiling, welcoming people, making sure that you're using nonverbal communication to welcome them and make them feel like their questions are valid. No matter what their topic is, even if it's a sensitive topic, as a librarian, we need to be able to help people with whatever their needs are. But after we welcome people and do our beginning, we need to figure out what the customer really wants to know. Okay, we need to find out, we need to ask them open and closed-end questions in order to establish what their needs are for the information search. Then we define the topic and understand the concepts of the topic, confirm the terms that you may use to commence your search. So one really excellent skill in a reference interview is to speak back to the customer what it is that they want. For instance, you would say, oh, okay, so what I understand you're doing is you're looking for this recipe that your grandmother made from the 1980s, and you're looking for it in this book, and you'd like me to find it for you. And you can either go to this library or the state library. So just confirming what it is that they want, making sure that your understanding is exactly what the customer's looking for. You ask what you're working on. It's very different if somebody's looking for something for their own personal needs, or if they're doing an HSC research project, or if they are a professor giving a lecture. So you need to understand what level of documentation they want. Do they need something that's written for children, or do they need something that's written for adults? Okay. What would you like to know about the topic? What do you already know about the topic? And is there something specific you would like to know? So in library studies, there are a lot of different information formats. The printed ones are the ones, and the printed ones and the AV ones are the ones that have been around for years, right? The books, magazines, pamphlets, memos, photographs, and maps, audio, visual, CD, MP3, DVD. Now we have YouTube and visual displays, for instance, PowerPoint. So those are audio visual formats. There are electronic formats. So this is the modern trend and the emerging trend in library studies, that electronic formats are really kind of the wave of the future, and that ebooks and digitized print resources, online information, and interactive displays are all part of the formats in libraries. Then you can have a personal format could be a discussion, a workshop, a conference, or tutorial. You could have a conference a program from a conference, for instance. So these are just different formats that are available. So I want to distinguish here between a source and a resource. I'm going to say that again, a source and a resource. This particular page is pointing out information sources. The sources are the location where you're going to find the resources. So a resource, an example of a resource would more be a book that you want, a journal article that you want, okay, a page in an encyclopedia. The sources, because there are going to be questions that you need to ask, is what are the particular sources that you would go to find X or Y? And so these are your sources. A library catalog is one of the, is when you go to a library website or you walk into a library and they have a computer and there's a box right there, a rectangle where you can put in your keyword search. That is a library catalog. The library catalog has the main collection and main information of what is actually in the library or what's available through interlibrary loan. Next, you have dictionaries, online reference sources. So you could have an online encyclopedia. Databases. Databases are electronic collections of like items. So for instance, there might be a database all on architecture, or there might be a database on art. There might be a database on news in New Zealand and Australia, okay? And those are available on computers. We have encyclopedias, websites, yearbooks, periodical indexes, full text databases, and then of course the internet. So these are the most commonly used sources and formats that people use to search for information in libraries. Number one are library catalogs. That's what I was telling you about. It's an organized and searchable list of records and allows us to identify, describe, and locate materials in one or more library collections. So it will tell us where resources are in the library collection. First of all, what's there, and secondly, where it is. Next, we have databases that I just talked about, which is an electronic collection of records containing documents, articles, journals, and many more. Now there are also databases that are collections of ebooks. Then we have online reference sources, materials which provide succinct, summarized information on topics. And you'll see these are LibGuides, library guides, subject guides. A library will have subscription to online reference sources for members to use. So these are supposed to be used as reference opposed to being read from beginning to end. Some of the online reference sources here, you have the Britannica, which is an encyclopedia, dictionaries, biographical sources. It's good to keep in mind that there are external sources of information, not just internal inside of a library. You could, there are public and school libraries. And then the public libraries, not only do we have our public local libraries, but we have the State Library of New South Wales. And I do recommend, if I haven't said this before, I recommend that everybody actually goes on to the websites for State Library of New South Wales and the National Library of Australia. If you are currently a member of a public library, you most likely have access to the State Library and the National Library, but it's also a good idea just to get your cards in the mail and you can keep them on your desk, and then that way it's easy to always have access to both of those resources for all of your studies. You can always go to TAFE and university libraries, and here's a link to the TAFE library website. And there are organizations. So for librarianship, our professional organization is the Australian Library and Information Association. And that is the organization that we work with in TAFE in education to determine what should be taught in the schools and what librarianship looks like and how we teach to prepare students for librarianship. So we're moving on to basic search strategies. So when you search, there are 4 main steps, and this is actually kind of a cycle because a lot of times what will happen is you'll start with on the left and then you'll get to the right, but then you'll need to start over again. So the first thing you want to do is start with main concepts. Is this about cooking? Is this about sport? Is this about history? Is this about travel? Okay. Once you figure out the purpose of your search, then what you're going to want to do is select which sources to search. Okay, so then you go back to that sources page and you say, well, am I going to go to the library catalog for this, or am I going to go to the website for this? For instance, if somebody is going on a trip and they want resources for their trip. If they want digital resources so they can, keep the links on their phone, you wouldn't really go to the catalog. You might get an ebook, but it might be better in that case to actually get websites so that it's easy for them to access them while they're abroad. Once you select your sources to do your searching, you're going to search the sources by applying appropriate strategies. And we're going to talk more about different strategies: keyword searches, subject searches, advanced searching. And then what you do is you review and you refine your results. Let's say that you have 10 different, items that you found, and maybe you only need 3, or maybe you go back and you look at the needs, the information need, and you say, oh, well, this one didn't necessarily fit my need. And then, of course, if you look at your list at the end and it isn't everything you need, you're going to go back to the pink on the left and you're going to start all over again and say, oh, I missed this one part. Maybe I need to start back over again in order to get what you need to complete the search. So this is exactly the same thing in a different format. And you can see that here, you're going to start with identifying the main concepts, and it talks about the keywords, the information need, and the type of inquiry. You select the library source to search, and actually this is something you'll see often where resource and source are used intertwined. And just so you know, we're going to try to consistently have source be the place where you go and look for things. So you can see here the library catalog, the library, the journal database, or other resources. Then you're going to actually do the search and search for the resources. And you'll see I was talking about search techniques being simple, advanced, keyword, or Boolean operators, and I'll explain these to you. You review and you refine your results. And that's where I was talking about evaluating your results, rethinking your keywords, and identifying other resources. All right, here are some of the search strategies which are available to you. If I didn't already say it, by the way, I already uploaded this PowerPoint to the, if I didn't upload it, I will upload it to your files section. So hopefully you'll be able to listen more and not have to take too many notes. But keyword search, title, author, subject, Boolean searching, and search limiters. So let's start with title, author, and subject, because I think most of the time people understand what that is. Title and author, that's pretty obvious what you're searching for. What's the name of the book, who wrote the book, or the music score, or the play, or the record, or the DVD, or anything like that. What's the title, what's the author? Keyword searching is similar to what you would type in Google. So if you would type in Google, what are plays by Shakespeare? That is a keyword search where it's going to go through and it's going to look for plays and it's going to look for Shakespeare and it's going to give you information. Okay. Then you have your subject search, Boolean searching, and search limiters. And I'm going to talk about those here. When you do searching, let me just look really fast here. Okay, Boolean operators. All right. Okay. Subject search, you'll see, I will show you an example later of when you search in a catalog, it'll have subject terms and how you can use those subject terms in order to find other resources that have the same subjects. And then I'm going to go on to Boolean searching and search limiters and other advanced means of searching. Okay. So one of the things that you can do when you are searching is you can search for phrases. So instead of when I said, what are Shakespeare's plays? Maybe I want to search for TAFE New South Wales, right? Which is 2 different words, cycles of the moon. Okay, if you want to put things together and you want them to be in the search together and you don't want like cycles in one part and moon in another part of the source, and you want them to all be together, you'll have quotation marks just like this. So see how it says you can enclose the phrase in quotation marks? And then you also use the search box labeled exact phrase or phrase. Next, ensuring a certain word is included in a search. If you use a plus, for example, plus human with no space in between, that means that it must contain the word human in the search, okay? Excluding, opposite of ensuring. When you exclude, you can exclude a certain word from the search. For example, you don't want human to be in it. So one of the things that comes up often is when I search for information literacy, which I do often in my examples, what'll come up a lot is I will get many, many resources on health information literacy. But I'm looking for library information literacy, not health information literacy. So what I have to do is I have to put this minus health, or in the searching, I have to put must not contain the word health, okay? Then here's something else, limit the search to a particular domain, use the domain. So in the search statement, for example, you can put football injuries, domain : AU. That means you want to see information about football injuries only in Australia. Okay, or let's say that you want to find something on the history of the Sydney Bridge, but you only want it to be from universities. So maybe you put domain.edu, okay, because you want it to be from an educational institution or .gov. Okay, so you could put here domain : AU or domain : edu. Now, these are called Boolean operators. This is a grouping of search techniques. So if you're ever asked to use advanced search techniques, this is what you are going to, one of the things you're going to say is Boolean operators. The other one is you can say limiters, but this is the Boolean operators. Okay. Boolean operators for searching. The first one is and, the second one is or, and the third one is not. So for and is going to narrow your search, or is going to broaden your search, and not is take something out of your search completely. So what I want to show you here is that when you say if you want something and something else, I'm going to actually go outside of the PowerPoint for just a minute, and I'm going to show you Boolean operators. And I'm going to go to images and show you an example of what this looks like. So you can see here, it's a little bit counterintuitive because if you think about picking up a red crayon and a blue crayon, when you think of a red crayon and a blue crayon, you think of more things. If I pick up a red and a blue and a green crayon, I'm picking up 3 crayons. But interestingly, and, which is on the left right here, makes your search smaller. So right here, you can see for peanut butter, all the things that have peanut butter in them is this circle. All the things that have jelly in them is this circle. But the resources that just have peanut butter and jelly is the smaller part right here. And that's how you're going to limit your search. Or is the second one. So when you say peanut butter or jelly, that means that it can have peanut butter by itself, jelly by itself, or when they're together, but it has everything included. And finally, not is if you have peanut butter but not jelly, not only does it take out the jelly by itself, but it also takes out anything that has peanut butter and jelly together. Okay. The other thing that I want to show you is I'm going to take you to the TAFE New South Wales library, which is right here. And first of all, earlier in the slideshow, I was telling you about the library catalog and this being able to do a keyword search in that there would be a rectangle to do a search. And this is what I'm talking about when, oh, excuse me, sorry about that click. This is our catalog search right here. Okay. When you search, let's go ahead and we'll search in the catalog, which, as I told you before, is the listing of all the items that are in the library collection. And what I told you was that I was going to search for, as I normally do, information literacy. When I search for information literacy, you can see that there are 246 titles. I'll make it nice and big so you can see right here, see how it says 246 titles, okay? Of these titles, now this is the last search tool that I'm going to show you for this part of the presentation, and that is what is called a limiter. So what you have, and it might be on the right, it might be on the left, depending where you do your search. I'll also show you an advanced search, and you'll see where the limits are there. There's also a part right here where it says limit your search. But let's say that when I look for information literacy, I only want to look for physical items. I don't want ebooks. I have someone in front of me who needs to check out a book and wants to read it on the beach about information literacy because it's their favorite topic. So I'm going to click over here on the right-hand side, physical items. Now, we have 246 titles, and I click physical items, and you'll notice that it stays at 246 titles. Let's see, 222. See how it changed right here to 222. Let's say that I change it to ebooks. I'm going to click on ebooks instead. And let's see, we have 18. So there are only 18 ebooks. So you can see how using the limiters on the side can narrow my search much better. Okay. When I click on one of the books, so I'm going to click on this one here, The Concise Guide to Information Literacy, 3rd edition. You can see that it's an ebook by the fact that it has an E and a picture of a book on it. I'm going to click on it, and you'll notice a few different things. You'll notice that it has the title and the author, which we talked about before. Okay, it has more publication and copyright information. And it has whether the item is available right now. Okay, and there is a copy available through e-resources, and it tells you that it's available online. Now I'm going to click here to the catalog record. Do you see how this on the left says item information? And now I'm going to click on catalog record. And when I do this, you're going to see something else that's very interesting, and it's right here. It's subject terms. Okay, so let me tell you something. A controlled vocabulary is a group of words that some group of people agree upon that are going to be used a certain way. Okay, these subject terms are a controlled vocabulary that are used by librarians, that when we catalog resources, we add these particular subject terms in. So these aren't random things that people have decided the book is about. These are actually listed from a master list of terms that this particular book has information about information literacy, information retrieval, research methodology, and report writing. Now, this is how I was telling you before that you can use the subject terms to find other information about this topic. If I click on let's say that I want to search information, well, we'll just do information literacy and we'll see if it's the same. I'm going to click on information literacy. What the catalog is going to do, now here it said for ebooks on information literacy, it has 80 titles that include that actual tag, that subject tag. Okay, so that's how we use subject. Let me show you that one more time. We were in the item information, and we're going to go to the catalog record. When we go to the catalog record, we can see right here that there are subject terms associated with it. Okay, I clicked on a different book this time. The Concise Guide to Information Literacy, 3rd edition. When I click on the catalog record, I'm going to scroll down and you'll see the subject terms down here. If I click on the subject terms, you will find all the resources in this library, and it might be TAFE all over the state, but there are 80 titles that are all ebooks on information literacy with that particular tag. Okay, so that's what subject searching is. So limiters, I'm going to show you one other thing in here. I'm going to do a new search, but this time I'm going to click down here under advanced search. Do you see on the bottom left here, it says advanced search? When you click on advanced search, what it does, this is what the librarians use. This is when we search with library studies students and librarians, we use the advanced search most often. So this is one of those times where I would put information literacy in the word or phrase. But remember, I told you that I wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure that under word or phrase, I don't want health and I want not health. Okay, because I don't want health, right? I only want information literacy. And let's say that I also want only ebooks. I don't want physical books. So I can go under here under type and I can put e-resources. Okay, you can even pick languages or libraries. And then what you do is you search here. And there were no items under what I picked. So let's take this off and try it again. There you go. So I got 4 titles. Oh, this has and health. Okay, so I probably did the search backwards here, where I want information literacy, not health. And let's see what happens. There you go, 242 titles about information literacy that do not have health in them. Okay, so if we go back to the PowerPoint now, and slideshow from the current slide, and we go back to, oh, that's not what I wanted. Oh. Here we go. It's being a little slow. Sorry about that. It's taking a moment, but we went from external sources to searching. Here were our different search strategies, our keyword searches, which is what we Google or put into that main rectangle. Title, author, subject you can put in. Boolean searching were the and, or, and not. We also added the subject searching. We learned where the subject terms are, and then the search limiters are the ones on the right-hand side or underneath the advanced search, where you limit your search based on what you're looking for. Okay, first topic done. 2 more topics to go. Now we're going to evaluate information against needs. So we're going to look at currency, authority, purpose, objectivity, and writing style. This is KPOW. This is one of the ways that we look at the whether a resource is going to meet our needs. So let's say that I was asking for information about when the Sydney Bridge was built and the architecture about the bridge, the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Would I want things from 5 years ago, or would I want things from maybe 50 years ago? What do you guys think?
Depends if you're doing the historical one, you'd want primary sources, but if you want, I guess it really depends because it's a historical thing.
Right, but you're not going to find that much written in the last 2 years or 3 years about the Sydney Harbor Bridge being built. Right? But what if I asked you about COVID? If I asked you about COVID-19, would you want something from 50 years ago?
No, obviously not.
No, because it didn't exist 50 years ago. Currency doesn't necessarily have to do with whether it's current now. It's whether it's current to the topic you're studying. What is the authority? Who is stating what they're stating? Is it a blog poster or is it a professor who has a peer-reviewed article? Okay. What's the purpose when you're online? If you're looking at websites, is the purpose to sell something or is the purpose to inform people? And as library studies professionals, we learn how to know the difference. Objectivity, we look at objectivity. Sometimes we need people's opinions. Sometimes we need information about, we need interviews with people, right? Sometimes they're not objective at all. And that's what we need. But sometimes we need it to be as objective as possible. And then you can also look at writing style. So KPOW is one of the ways that we evaluate our resources to see if it's a valuable resource in our search. Here it is written again with currency, authority, purpose, objectivity, and writing style. Are there spelling and grammar errors? If there are, it's probably not your best source. Is it factual? Does it offer personal opinions? Which one are you looking for? For purpose, what's the purpose of the information? Authority, who wrote it? Are they subject matter experts, or are they relaying information secondhand? Currency, when was the information published or last updated? Does your resource provide you with recent information? So as we talked about with the information literacy process, this is a process for assessing and adjusting your results, where you have your initial search results, you evaluate them using the KPOW method, you have a high-level check for relevance, you do a check-in with the customer, and either you give the resources to the customer or you adjust your search strategy. Review and selecting information. So what skills are required for doing the search? When you have those skills, you check for thoroughness. You evaluate your results. You know what key elements to look for. You're checking your fit for purpose, and then you're handing it over to the next person. This is the process for reviewing search results. And we're moving on to part 3. We're already through, 2/3 through. So now we're going to prepare and present our information. So how are we going to prepare and present information? We're going to organize library resources. We're going to prepare our results of information searches according to the organizational procedures, and then we're going to present the information in a format that meets the purpose. So this slide, I want you to know it's here, and I want you to have heard these things before. I want you to have heard these acronyms before, but I don't want you to stress about them. Okay, I just want you to know that Dewey Decimal Classification is the most widely used classification system in Australia. AACR2, R, RDA, MARC are all things that I will have topics that I would have wanted you to hear, because you're going to do you may or may not be doing cataloging at one point. And so you just need to know that they're there. They're part of library studies. Schools Cataloging Information Service. So the Dewey Decimal Classification System is what most public libraries and university libraries, specialty libraries use in Australia. The Schools Cataloging Information Service is a way of classifying books. What it does do differently from Dewey is it has a list of acceptable terms and then a list of unacceptable terms. And then the unacceptable terms, it actually tells you what you can use instead when you're classifying. So SCIC and Dewey Decimal, those are the ones that I want you to at least think about and remember from this page. Now, one of the things that comes up in library studies is that you always need to follow the policies of the organization that you're working for. So if you ever have a question anywhere and it says, follow the policies of the organization, that is the correct answer, almost always, unless it's safety. Safety always comes first. But after safety, the organizational policies are the most important thing. So the information service policy outlines the full range of library materials, resources, facilities, services, and staff expertise available to the customers at the ABPL. ABPL is the Azure Beach Public Library. If you look in the wiki, it has information about ABPL. That's where you're going to find these particular policies, okay? The Access Information Policy details the library's obligation to provide free and equitable access to information. And so there are links to both of those, and links in your wiki, and links in your TDC, and links here in the PowerPoint. When you present information, you need to know about the relevant formats for that information. Sometimes you present it face-to-face. Here's the book you were looking for. I hope you enjoy it. Sometimes it's written, oral, electronic, or visual. Sometimes you do a PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes you put it in an email. Sometimes you write it down for people. When people are coming to the desk at a library and they're looking for a particular book, you may write down the call number for the book and hand it to them. You may tell them it's, oh, go look in the travel section. Okay. Or you might actually create a bibliography and print it out and give it to one of your customers. So this is another slide on information sources. And remember, we talked about the difference between information sources and information resources. And the resources are the actual books, journal articles, movies, DVDs, but these are information sources. And in your book, in your workbook, and for some reason, they're in two different sections. So this is another time that the information sources are available to you. Public and school libraries, TAFE and university libraries, electronic databases, the state and national libraries, internet information sources, and organizations, associations, and the government. So don't forget that there are organizations and government facilities that do have information. Nowadays, most of it's online, but those are the information sources. Next, we're going to talk about communication formats. We talked about them earlier, and so I'm just going over them one more time. We have our printed formats, our audiovisual formats, our electronic formats, and our interpersonal formats. What influences your process? The people to whom the information is being presented. Who your customer is going to influence how you do your search and the decisions that you make. How the information is being presented, why the information is being presented, cultural factors, and physical limitations. Make sure that you customize your presentation to the communication method and that your delivery meets the needs of your stakeholder. Okay, there are templates. You guys will have access to templates through the ABPL intranet. Let me show you what this looks like. So when you go on the internet, you'll notice that you have to log into the internet, to the ABPL, Azure Beach Public Library website. Even though you have to log in, it is their internet site, which is the site that would be available to anyone. Actually, we're on the intranet right now. This is the internet site. Welcome to Azure Beach Public Library. You can see that it goes to their digital collection, which will take you to their catalog, services, events, about. Okay, it looks just like a regular website. It is a fictitious library, but it looks like a regular website. And the difference between an internet and the intranet is that the intranet is the internal, as if you are working at ABPL. When you go to the intranet, you will see a whole section here on templates. Sometimes you may be asked to use the email template to create an email to your boss. Use the memo template, use a planning template. All of the templates are going to be available here. Okay. So it's awesome when you have templates because it just makes creating documents and information so much better, so much easier, so much quicker. When you disseminate information, it's really important that you give consideration to copyright, organizational statistical record keeping requirements, procedures for telephone and email usage, and the information and services policy and reference policy. So make sure that you know about copyright, make sure you know how copyright fits in. The last part of this unit is developing your own information literacy skills. And this is one of the ways that you can develop your own information literacy skills. You can gain insights from others, be approachable, listen to understand, try not to become defensive, take notes, ask clarifying questions, and thank people for their feedback. Another way that you can identify opportunities to develop your skills is this is called the Kolb method, K-O-L-B. You start with having an experience, whatever it is. Step 2 is reflecting on that experience. Step 3 is learning from the experience. And step 4 is trying out what you might have learned. So you may be asked at one point, you're at work, you're doing a really good job, but you made a mistake last week. And then it says, what can you do differently? What would you do in the future? And this might be a really good thing to refer to say, well, according to the Kolb method, I did something and then I did something wrong. So I'm going to reflect on what I did wrong. I'm going to learn from it. And here's what I'm going to do differently. And then I'm going to try out what I learned next time. When you're developing your information literacy, there are many different ways you can do that. You can do it through continuing education, formal training, and informal training. There are other opportunities to get tertiary qualification, conferences, readings, and networking, okay? As a TAFE teacher, I actually have a requirement that I have to develop my my information literacy, my teaching skills all the time, both in teaching as well as in library studies. So being a lifelong learner and having information literacy is going to benefit you throughout your entire life, no matter what field you choose to go in, whether it's library studies or anything else.